It's Wellness Wednesday. It's Wellness Wednesday. Zelda's Tale is joining us, and I apologize for the very bright lipstick this Wellness Wednesday. This lipstick does not look this bright in person. It's like a coral color, but for some odd reason, by Zelda, my camera just takes a very pleasant coral and makes it look almost red. And why am I apologizing for this? It's not just I'm Canadian. We apologize for everything. It's the fact that some people with autism have trouble with bright lipstick shades. So I did not intend this, but it's the long wearing lipstick shade that I use. It's a long wearing lipstick brush. Like, I can't get it off. There's like nothing to rub off. This is on until I use the remover. So I might do that after this because wow, it's bright. Anyway, this is sort of interesting, ironic about what I'm going to talk about today, because I've had conversations with multiple people about how annoyed we all are by every time you try to talk about an issue for one group, you have to do this big long preamble about how you recognize that other groups have it bad too, or other groups have it worse. You know, if we want to talk about anything involving white men, you have to do, you know, the equivalent of the indigenous land declarations that we do up here. Americans probably don't have any awareness. Whenever you do something in a government building where there is a treaty that, you know, our ancestors used as toilet paper back in the day, you have to read this lengthy land acknowledgement. And my issue with it is the way that it's done is everybody sort of rolls their eyes and it's like, can we just get to it? And it defeats the purpose of actually connecting to the fact that, yeah, these were people who got shit on. It's okay to recognize that, you know, and then everybody just waits for it to be over and then we can go on with our good time. And that's the same thing that happens when people have to do, you know, let's talk about men or abuse. Yes, we know that women are more likely to be, you know, this, that, the next thing, and men are more likely. And this is where we start tripping up on it because, yes, we know women are more likely to be sexually abused. We know women are more likely to be a victim of domestic violence, but men are also more likely to be the perpetrators and the victims of physical violence. At this point, everybody's lost, right? We've completely lost the plot. So this is what I'm going to talk about today. What are some alternatives to this, right? Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, Ko-fi.com/LeannaK. If any of these videos make you feel like you want to talk to somebody or you need to talk to someone, there is a link in the description box for the Leanna Cares intake form in this video, especially Monday mornings, Wednesday mornings, or some Wednesday afternoons. It's week to week. It goes back and forth. There is availability. So on a bi-weekly basis. So if you want to talk about something in these distressing times, please reach out. Don't suffer in silence. Your concerns matter. The vast majority of my client base is male. And why do I specifically focus on men? Because men, I find, more than white women, are the ones that have to do this very complicated, you know, hasticles, chesticles. I'm not Catholic, so I don't know how to do the cross thing properly. But I do find that white women don't do it nearly as much. And considering like that is the major source of Karens, that's weird, right? And there's this idea of, oh, we don't have to because patriarchy, you know, and this is where we get into the complexity of the issue because, you know, there was that very controversial statement Obama made during the election where he specifically called out black men of maybe not wanting to vote for a woman and finding other reasons for that. And black men were like, what? we voted for Hillary, and people sort of just we don't talk about Bruno, which was the Latino vote. So that's awkward. And that's the thing. When you are trying to get buy-in, when you are trying to get interest conversions, you don't go up in front of a room full of people and go, hey, I'm going to scold you for not supporting this other group right now when everybody's got it tough right now. And that, I think, is the way through this. This is an alternative to the lengthy preamble that we end up doing just so we're allowed to make a point that isn't one of the popular ones. Just look, everybody's going through something right now. Times are tough for everyone. We are not ignoring, we are not excluding other people's struggles. We're just going to talk about this specific one right now because maybe this is a problem we can solve. That's the way I come at it. And some people don't like that, but you're not going to please everybody. We can only work with people whose interests converge, right? And this, I do think all of the sort of political groups are not interested in interest convergence, because interest convergence is how we make change. If people see that something's in it for them, then they're more likely to come on board. Nobody's going to do For the Love of God, Think of the Children when eggs are $1 more expensive than they were a year ago. And that's the problem with getting people to care about things that actually do affect them. Because we do see a lot of overlap. For instance, the issues that affect Black men are just sort of on the bottom of the shit pile. But the whole thing's a shit pile, right? The intersection of masculinity and Blackness just fucks with those guys. And, the better people than I, more informed people than I, will unpack Latino men voting for Trump. When Trump was big on deport brown people, and they didn't seem to realize that, look, if they're eyeballing illegals, they're going to racially profile just because of the most common country of origin, right? In people's minds. Here it's more difficult. You'd have a really hard go eyeballing somebody who's illegal versus someone who's not illegal, just because we only have one land crossing. So all the, irregular migrants come from America in this country. Right? But this is the thing, is I think that because, and we have to be very, very careful not to lose our mosaic multiculturalism in Canada. And what does mosaic multiculturalism mean? It means that instead of melting pot multiculturalism, that idea of you come to America and you speak American, right? Even Canadian voice actors have to speak American. It means making every vowel an A. So, that's what we do. We either do like a Southern accent because it's really easy to hide behind. Oh, we do like some kind of Harley Quinn thing, right? There's no one American accent, but people go speak American. Just don't out and about and you're fine, right? But I like my out and abouts, right? It's funny because when I did Solomon's voices, I always emphasize that's why outrage sounds so unique, because it's a Canadian out. But we are at risk of losing it here too, because times are tough. And when times are tough, people feel shame, and shame gets overwhelming. And so if you try to make a person who is coming at something from a paradigm of shame go, oh, yes, other people have it worse, it can backfire on you. And that's what a lot of these special interest groups that meant very well have very good points, but came at things from a very combative, sit down, shut up while I yell at you perspective. That's never worked. It has never, ever worked. I don't care how many selective readings you take from Letters from a Birmingham Jail about the white moderate to justify your sit down, shut up while I scream at you tactics. That letter was specifically to members of the clergy, not all white moderates. Moderates are the people that have to be convinced, because moderates, statistically, are the majority. Now, this is very political, and I will pivot to a mental health perspective. I'm just trying to make it topical because I'm following my own advice. What's in it for you? Well, you're going to be, one, more effective. Two, you're not going to be contributing to this paradigm of everybody being afraid of getting screamed at. Most of us want that, right? Most of us are sick of the cancellation bullshit of, losing job opportunities because of one tweet. Here's what doesn't make any sense about one tweet, or maybe 10 tweets, right? It's not even tweets anymore. Now it's posts on Blue Sky. But people take one comment that somebody made once and treat that as the whole of their opinion on an issue when they've got 50,000 posts on a social media service, right? That's illogical. If somebody actually has a problem, it's sort of like what's coming out about that one actress from Amelia Perez, where she had a whole string of very racially insensitive and racially inflammatory things. It wasn't an isolated incident. We're all capable of, saying something, writing something out that sounded fine in our head, came up totally different than we intended. Oh, we forgot to put the little smiley face emoji on it. Whatever, right? Like, text tends not to age great. Context gets stripped, so on and so forth. And I think that's why that has sort of become the impetus for people who are bad actors, who do have ill will, who are looking to divide for their own profit. Why those people are getting better at persuading the middle ground to who don't like any political extremes to vote for them in a two-party system where you have to pick one or vote third party, which is throwing your vote away, but also helping the person, you probably like least. And Trump in this last election, they keep calling it a landslide. It wasn't the Electoral College, but he won the popular vote by less than the third party vote. So the third party vote mattered this time. Something to learn from. And that's something that I don't think going on Blue Sky or Facebook or one of the other social media services that sane people still use and going, fuck you, I'm not talking to you if you voted for Trump, that does fuck all good right now. Because the largest portion of voters in the US that voted for Trump. So you are alienating the majority with that. And if you don't care in politics, that's fine. But that shit trickles down into your interpersonal relationships. Okay? If you are letting moral purity be the enemy of consensus, your social circle is going to be very small. And you may think you have a huge social circle because you're involved in these activist groups where as long as everyone says the right things, the leopards don't eat our faces. But those aren't comfortable environments. Those are not people you can rely on when things are down. In part because, one, nobody's got any money because they're all just professional activists living off vegan cupcakes. I don't know why it's vegan cupcakes. It's always vegan cupcakes. But, you know, and the large boxes of Tim Hortons up here, but everybody drinks that, so that's no indicator. But those aren't real friends. Those are a series of transactional relationships that are using each other to play a numbers game that doesn't work. It doesn't matter how many people agree with you on something. If you don't persuade an individual that what you're saying makes sense, you know, people don't tend to follow majority rules. They're like, I don't care if it's an unpopular view. This is what I believe. And you have to have the conversation, right? And you have to have the conversation consistently. Because if you're not willing to, it's hypocritical to demand anyone else step out from behind their anger, step out from behind the easy fuck you, and actually have a conversation where, you know, stuff trades both ways. You're never going to agree 100%. But if you can get a piece of consensus that you can work towards, that is a huge win. And that's not popular right now. And honestly, because times are tough right now, that's going to have to become popular or there's no hope. Like, we are in the end game of decades. This started, well, in some ways it started in the 1950s. In some ways it started in the 1970s. In some ways it started with the subprime mortgage bust. That's when people really started struggling financially, and the boom cycles never quite made up for the bust. Income inequality is huge, and everybody keeps screaming about government interventions and government solutions. Let's face it, it's just not coming. Even though there's a social will, there's no political will because of money in politics. So we have to, as people, take care of our own. And that's where what it means to be our own comes in, right? Because that has a real charge of our own race, our own gender, and that is not what it means to me. Absolutely not. What it means to me is the people that do for you and the people you are willing to do for. And this social currency, this give and take, is extremely important whenever you're asking someone to make a change. And this is what, in my opinion, progressive advocates get wrong all the time. Because it is way easier to do what the right does, which is be a petty shitlord and dump on everyone because God and America and making money, right? That's easy. You're just saying be an asshole with you know, emotions-based decision making. Progressives are going, look, we need you to tolerate something you don't understand yet, and therefore you don't trust, and take our word for the fact that it's not dangerous when the other guys here are going to show you a lot of very scary stuff that makes it look like it is. Because humans have a tendency to just go for safety over freedom. And some of you might, no, not me. Okay, you're the minority. That's the thing. You know, as a freedom over safety person myself, we have to accept that we're the minority. Most people, whether that's their self-image or not, will choose being safe under a tyrant as opposed to taking risks under more freedom. The Bitcoin guys try to have it both ways. So that's why it's really important to go look. I understand this is difficult. I understand this is uncomfortable. And doing the personal appeal of, it would mean a lot to me if you could just hear me out here. And being prepared to give some in return. And that's where we come full circle to that expectation that whenever, and men's issues are just one thing. There's a lot of, I have a lot of issues with the whole straight allyship being sort of, nobody really wants straight allies, like, because they're supposed to sit and shut up in LGBTQ plus spaces, but also, why in the anti-progressive spaces? And we do have to be compassionate and really understand and really appreciate that the people in the middle are feeling like no matter where they go, someone gonna yell at them and they don't get the right to yell back because they have no mob right now. And in that equation, they're gonna go to the one that's easiest, which is the people asking for no change. Now, okay, you can't say there's sweeping changes going on in the US. There's going to be sweeping changes up here in Canada because of the reaction to the sweeping changes in the US. It's just, this isn't the change anyone wanted. People wanted more money in their pocket and a sense of security. And that's what they thought was being promised. And we all know that's not the only thing he was saying, but again, in the US, local news has been gobbled up by St. Clair Media, which is very conservative, possibly more conservative than Fox News. And Fox News is still a ratings juggernaut in the cable TV space. And then people get their news from social media, which there's a lot of shit out there. But also when people are scared, they tend to swing more conservative. And these are all things we can't shame people. We can't yell at people into changing this. We have to accept that it is so. And I truly believe that if you want people to listen to you, or if I want someone listen to me, I have to display an understanding of their issues, what's bothering them, give them a little bit of empathy, seem to understand. And that's not a lot to ask. That makes sense to me, right? I don't listen to people who I think I'm never going to be able to please and don't understand what I'm going through. Why would I expect anybody else to do that? I walk into conversations humble. I walk in recognizing that nobody has to listen to me. Nobody has to do anything I want. And so I am going to be mindful when somebody seems to have a rough reaction. I am going to ask someone where they got a data point or an opinion. What makes you think that? And it's much easier to go, what makes you think that? Where do you get that from? then go, well, that's just not true. Because to them, it is true. That's not lying to you. This is what they believe, right? And you have to sort of gently unpack. Like, we really need to talk in another Wellness Wednesday about, anecdotal evidence. I get a lot of, well, what makes you think that men are uniquely lonely? Well, ask any guy. That's flip a coin. Okay, I'm going to ask this guy. He says, no, I'm not lonely. Is he the anomaly? That's just an emotional response. And you know what? That's fine. Because the other thing I've noticed about speaking to men, women have a different form of deflection, but men need to loosen up, establish trust by talking about, I say this affectionately, bullshit. Talking about a video game, talking about stuff that does not matter, to sort of establish a rapport before they sort of drop little bits in. And you gotta let them. You can't force that. I mean, I'm the same way. I can't just go in somewhere and tell someone strongly held personal beliefs that I think will be judged right away. Like, I gotta know you, so I understand that. But this idea that we expect men to prostrate themselves and just bleed and apologize for things other men did. I've heard of freaking speed dating things where men are supposed to apologize to the women that apologies on behalf of the men that have hurt them in the past. And I said, well, did the women do the same thing to the men? No. What the hell's that? I know what it is, right? It's trying to attract a particular kind of person to that type of speed dating. And speed dating is the new online dating. There's a lot of it out there, so some of it's going to be real shit. When you're talking to someone and they start, and this is another thing I've found, speak about your own experiences, right? If a guy says to me, say, I was abused by an ex-girlfriend, or I was abused by a female family member, I'm not going to start citing statistics at him. I'm going to say, that's horrible. I'm sorry you had to go through that. That was wrong. Right? That's where you start. And imagine if this guy has to say every time he's going to talk about what he experienced, that I know women have it worse, and I know, and all this minimizing shit. We know psychologically minimizing is bad, and in every other space we go, don't compare traumas, right? Back in the 80s, parents would go, oh, there's starving children in Africa every time you complained, which is maybe why us Gen Xers ended up so unwilling to talk about this shit, because we heard, oh, there's starving children in Africa. So what does that have to do with a kid who just punched me in the face at school today? Those starving children in Africa have it worse? Thanks, Mom and Dad. I feel real supported. We need to stop working out this shit on other people. We need to recognize we didn't like it, so don't do it to others, right? This seems so simple, but it is so hard to do when you are going through your own trauma response. And it's real easy to blame others. It's real easy to go, no, they gotta go first because I don't trust them. But part of the reason people aren't making friends, part of the reason people are so profoundly lonely right now, is everyone is so risk averse. And very considerate reasons. I hear, well, I don't want to make them uncomfortable. It's like, why would this make them uncomfortable? This is what I say instead of, it won't make them uncomfortable. And you know what? There are some times that the person who said it, I'm like, all right, I can see why you think that. So let's maintain with what you're comfortable doing. We're not going to do that. That's what builds trust, validating the other person's experience. So if somebody starts telling you about something that's important to them, and I know I'm going to hear this because I like, working with highly stigmatized causes and communities. I'm going to hear about, well, this is more important. Well, this is more important. Well, this, well, that, and it's like, yeah, okay, those are very important. But I'm going to show you how we can do something about this, right? I prefer to deal with things where this is a tangible goal that takes a relatively small amount of money and effort. And sure, it may not work, but I think it's worth trying, and here's why. Because it's achievable. It's not Africa, right? It's not solving the domestic violence problem. But at the same time, building shelters doesn't solve domestic violence. And if we keep building shelters and they're all still full, what does it say about our efforts to really root out, really reduce the root causes of domestic violence? Well, they're failing horribly. We're still having to build more shelters, right? Means we have to do something differently. And this is both as the speaker and the receiver. Like if someone's saying to you, regarding, say, because let's face it, with something like terminologies or, especially with the pronoun stuff, people are afraid of making a mistake. And they no longer believe all that matters is you try, because they've had too many people jump on them online. And people, that's bullshit. And, well, it is illogical to judge a person right in front of you by experiences online where everybody's a big tough guy behind their keyboard. But at the same time, it's an emotional response, and you're not going to shame the person out of it, right? And so it's got to be something of, look, just try. And if you're trying and somebody gives you a hard time, they'll deal with me. Because I know you're trying. It means a lot to say, I see you trying. Somebody who is willing to actually have a back and forth with you on something, even if they don't agree at the end of the conversation, that's meaningful. If you're getting something more out of someone than talking points that you can see on Twitter, you've done your job, right? If somebody starts telling you a bad personal experience that they had with something, this is the reason they feel that way, that is meaningful. That is a massive opportunity. I have said to people I've really butted heads with, look, I would really prefer that you just talk about what happened to you. Let's leave the statistics and the masses and the what happens to guys and what happens to girls, and let's just leave all that out and deal with you as an individual, because you're the person I care about right now. And I desperately want to be able to tell you that I believe what happened to you was wrong. And if that group of people get too big, I can't do that. It's not tangible enough, right? It doesn't matter if women are more likely to be victims of domestic violence than men if the man right in front of you was a victim of domestic violence, right? It doesn't matter what race or whatever, if the person right in front of you is the exception. You pointing out that they're the exception just sends the message that you don't care about what happened to them. They are an inconvenience. And as much as we like facts and statistics because they are comforting, these are emotional issues, and we can't neglect the emotions, even if the other person is. Even if the other person is insists they're just speaking facts. And you know that the facts are either wrong or incomplete. You got to establish trust before you can have that discussion. And this is what I've learned fucking this up a lot of times. I am not saying that I have a brilliant track record on this. This is what I've learned doing this again and again and again and again. So yeah, you'll probably find something in my past with me contradicting myself. This is me going, I was wrong then. This is what I believe now. That's what you expect to hear from a person coming at you correctly. You know, we can be stronger together. We can give each other comfort. Statistics are not comforting. They may be delicious for nerds like me. I love data, but they're not comforting when someone is, trying to talk about their own pain indirectly. And it's very important to really listen for those tells. And you may truly believe that somebody is just making too big a deal out of something. But if you want mutual support, you better change that attitude, right? Because there's plenty of things, like I have a PTSD diagnosis. I tell people I'm making too big a deal out of things all the time. I get told I'm hiding behind my disability. I get told I have anger problems. And when I say that it's not anger, it's fear. You're hiding behind your disability, right? People can check me on this shit any day of the week. I will lose this argument, and I know it. Because they're not looking for a reason to listen to me when they do this stuff. They're looking for a reason to dismiss me. And 9 times out of 10, when you're the one asking somebody to make a change is hard. So people are looking for reasons to dismiss you instead of reasons to make that change. Whereas I try to set the example of, all right, that's a perspective I haven't heard before. Tell me more. I step into their framing. So I'm the one doing the active effort first. So then when I ask them to make an adjustment for me, I'm not asking them to do anything I didn't just do. Sometimes they see it, sometimes they don't. But, a 30% success rate is better than a 0% success rate, right? Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Remember, you can sign up for a Leanna Care session if you need someone to talk to in these difficult times. Coffee.com/LeannaK. It is video, voice, or text. I do offer text sessions over Discord and other services. So thanks for watching, and be well.